What about the Las Vegas shooting, the manifestos, the Oak Creek shooting where white supremacists walked into a Gurdwara and killed 6 people?
Terrorists are terrorists. Terrorists are terrorists.
Well,
I immigrated to the United States and I continued having the Middle East as my focus. And that's what I talk about. We are dealing, Linda, with a radical Islamic element that wants to wreak havoc on the United States. The country is safe all these years since September 11th because our great protectors and first responders and FBI have put programs in place to protect us, and they are watching over the country. That's why we are safe.
How do we in America understand the concept of Islamophobia? We are not very familiar with Islam unless you study it and you know it. But yet, there is the question of Islamophobia. Well, let's listen to this fiery conversation about Islamophobia today in America.
Let me ask you about a statistic that you brought up at this conference I mentioned in D.C. earlier this week. You said the radicals are estimated to be between 15 and 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. Where does that statistic come from?
That statistic comes from the combined intelligence of the Australians, the Canadians, the Jordanians, the Israelis, the United States, countries that share intelligence who are now monitoring what's happening in the world today.
You're saying 180 million to 300 million Muslims are radicals?
But you're talking about that fraction out of 1.2 billion people. Now, the majority of 1.2 billion people are peaceful people. They are not strapping bombs on their bodies. They are not going out blowing up people. They don't want to kill people.
Nor are the 15 to 25%.
15 to 25% are radicalized. Now, not every single one of them wants to blow himself up, but they either support terrorists who want to blow themselves up, provide them with financing, provide them for money, provide them with logistical support. 15 to 25% have been radicalized.
Brian, Miss Gabriel speaks out of 2 sides of her mouth. I mean, first of all, in one breath, she'll say the West must support moderate Muslims and the moderate Muslims must speak up against terrorism. And in the same breath, she'll say peaceful Muslims are irrelevant. Miss Gabriel needs to make up her mind when it comes to what is radical Islam. When asked by Australian News, she said a radical Muslim is someone who prays 5 times a day, someone who believes in the word of the Quran, which is the Muslim holy book, someone who believes the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, is a perfect man. That's basically every Muslim. So I have no idea what she means. Where is the room for moderate Islam?
We need to support moderate Muslims, and we work with them. We actually have keynote speakers at our national conference who are moderate Muslims. I had a TV show where we invited them on to be on our TV show. We want to expose their message, but that's completely different than dealing with terrorism, what I deal with as a terrorism analyst. And that's what we need to discuss. The moderate Muslims, they can organize. Where are their collective voices? Where are the voices of the moderate Muslims speaking when girls kidnapped by Boko Haram disappear and we still do not know where they are?
We hear that quite a bit on Fox News. Where are the moderate Muslims? What's the answer to that question?
There are people out there that stood up on Boko Haram, on terrorism, on 9/11. There are national Muslim organizations who continue day in and day out to put out statements. Is the media covering it? I don't have control over the media to cover these stories, and I don't have to prove to anyone that I am an American born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and that my parents chose to come to the United States from living under military occupation in Palestine. And you talk about going into a grocery store in Arlington, Virginia, because you speak Arabic and you understand the culture and that's where you get your credibility from. I understand the culture and I speak the language too. And I've never, ever walked into a grocery store or into a hookah lounge or into a community center or a mosque in this country where people were saying that they wanted to destroy America.
We know what is being put out. There has been a study after study of the material that have been found in different mosques across the country, research after research, and these are factual research that have been presented to our government.
Do you do terrorism? Are you a terrorism analyst on terrorism in general? What about the Las Vegas shooting, the manifestos, the Oak Creek shooting where white supremacists walked into a Gurdwara and killed 6 people.
Terrorists are terrorists. Terrorists are terrorists.
Well,
I immigrated to the United States and I continued having the Middle East as my focus. And that's what I talk about. We are dealing, Linda, with a radical Islamic element that wants to wreak havoc on the United States. There are cars driving in New York right now testing for biological or chemical agents in the air to make sure that nothing has been detonated 24 hours a day. In New York City, in Chicago, in major cities in the United States, trying to protect the country.
But will we not
that
look
is
back?
Something we need to discuss and
Will
deal
we
with.
not look back at this era as a gross overreaction to a terrorist threat that is not there in the way you're describing it to be?
The terrorist threat has been there, Brian, for years. America has been attacked under different administrations since 1979 by radical Islamists, whether we had a Democrat or a Republican.
And by people who have twisted Christianity into their own beliefs as well.
I agree with you. I agree with you. There are extremists on both sides. But when you look at radical Islam, the country is safe all these years since September 11th because our great protectors and first responders and FBI have put programs in place to protect us, and they are watching over the country. That's why we are safe.
Linda, do you feel there are specific examples of times where the media has fanned the flames of misunderstanding about Islam?
Absolutely. I mean, let's look at the Boston bombing. The first front page story came out on the New York Post of 2 young Algerian boys with book bags, calling them the bagmen. Immediately when a incident happens in this country that includes someone who just happens to be of an Arab country of origin or Muslim, we immediately start talking about terrorism and domestic terrorism. And when we have the same cases, similar cases, shootings almost every week in this country where dozens of people are being killed at the hands of guns and lax gun control, I'm more worried about getting shot by a gun or by a shooter in the U.S. than I am from a terrorist attack. The media oftentimes, including Fox News in particular, who actually does hit series on people like me for standing up and speaking my mind and practicing my American patriotism, the media does play a role in this, but it also gives, again, the platform to people who are pseudo-experts. And just because you grew up in the Middle East and just because you supposedly lived under a war doesn't make you a terrorism analyst. There are people who have extensive training in this area and at the same time can talk about very fringe Islamic terrorism without talking about Islam as a religion being a threat, the fastest growing religion in the country. And what Ms. Gabriel and her friends don't say is that many of the foiled plots that in this country have been foiled by information that came directly from the community, in some cases even the immediate family members of those who were alleged to be organizing a terrorist attack or traveling to places like Pakistan and others.
We're talking about, as 2 Americans, about how we can protect our country. We are both faced with an enemy wishing both our destruction. When those people attacked the World Trade Center, they wanted to kill Americans, Muslims, Christians, and everybody. When Zazi or Shazad wanted to blow up Times Square or the New York subway system, they were planning on killing Americans, teenagers, people taking the subways back to work or back home. They wanted to kill all of us. When you're talking about plots of mass scale, somebody parking a car about to explode in Times Square, or want to blow up the subway system in New York, or want to blow up the Sears Tower in Chicago, we're talking about the mass killing of thousands of Americans, if not millions. That is what we need to be discussing and how we can protect the country.
Isn't that fear-mongering? To use the words like thousands and millions, isn't that fear-mongering?
The idea here is that you want to talk about terrorism, let's talk about terrorism and let's be prepared. But let's not prepare the American people that all terrorism that happens around the world comes from the Muslim community. That's the point that I want to debate with you here.
Well,
is that the idea here that terrorism is a serious issue, but terrorism does not equal Islam. It does not equal Muslims. I am from New York. I live in New York. I was here in New York on 9/11, Ms. Gabriel. I understand the impact that 9/11 had on communities in New York City. I could have been in the World Trade Center. I could be dead here today. There were Muslim responders. There were Muslims. 75 Muslims died in 9/11, including a first responder, Salman Hamdani. So I want you to understand that if you want to combat terrorism, you need to work within the Muslim community. You need to make sure that we are part of that discussion. And the, quote, moderate Muslims that you're talking about, which are almost every Muslim living here in this country, need to be part of this discussion. But to alienate the Muslim community, create them as the other, and to start making over exaggerations about these potential attacks that haven't happened is not the way that you combat terrorism in any country, and especially not here in the United States, in a country where I can live here and speak freely, you can stand there and speak freely, and that's the kind of country that I want to live in, and I want to be part of the discourse.
And we want to make sure we protect this country, and we do work with a lot of moderate Muslims, like I said, who even come and speak at our national conference. What we're talking about now, Islamic terrorism. When you're watching the news this morning and you're hearing about terrorists in Syria, in Jordan, in Lebanon, at Boko Haram, in Sudan, in Nigeria, in Chad, in Libya, I can go down the list. Every single instant when you're watching the news, it's not Buddhist terrorists, it's not Christian terrorists. Yes, there are some crazy people who commit terrorism, but right now the terrorism on mass scales, the bodies piled up, the people being beheaded, even Muslims shooting other Muslims, like what we watched in Iraq because they did not believe them that they were Sunnis. That is barbarism on a mass scale, and that's unacceptable in civilized society.
As long as you clarify and you stand up and say that the fringe extremists of any faith are only a tiny minority in the larger faith, this is what we want you to talk about. When you talk about Islam and you talk about the Quran, the 1.4 billion people across the world follow the word of the Quran. You just got to make sure that you're being specific when you talk about terrorism of any faith, but more specifically, Islamic terrorism.
They're not waiting to hear your opinion or my opinion. They want to kill us both. And this is why we must discuss how we can defeat the radicals who want to kill us, who are using the Quran as their source and justification for their murder.
Why are we having this discussion if you and I are irrelevant? Why the discourse? Why the debates? Why the analysis?
Exactly.
If we are irrelevant.
Because right now what we need to be talking about is how we can defeat the radicals.
Well, thank you very much. Red news, blue news, and the topic of Islamophobia. Well, that has become a new term that has recently been coined. Anti-Semitism has been around for 3,338 years. And yet Islamophobia has now become a thing. And the question is why? So this discussion was very helpful for us to appreciate and to try to wrap our minds around it. Is Islamophobia a phobia, or is it a fear based on facts? And this is what Brigitte Gabriel was reflecting. We don't take one brush and say all of Muslims are terrorists, are evil, bad people. That's not what she is saying. But what she is saying is, when you have 2 billion Muslims in the world, and just 1% are jihadists, radicalized idealists who are ready to kill for their religion, 1% of 2 billion is a lot. Do the math yourself. And the question is, yes, there is extremism in all religions. There's moderates in all religions. But what is the extremism in Judaism? What does an extremist Jew do? When you find an extremist Jew, what do? An extremist Jew may be praying 3 times a day and may eat only certain foods and not mix milk and meat together. What is the most extreme thing that an extremist Jew, you'd catch them doing? They're praying too long. They're spending too much time studying the Bible. Let's, in contrast, what are the extremists, as we call in the Islam world, the jihadis, the idealists? What are they occupied with? And that is how you have these 2 religions represents 2 very different concepts of life. Judaism is a religion that's obsessed with life. Where do we get that obsession from? From God. When God created the world, He gave us the Torah and told us, you are to populate the world and live in it. It's all about life. God told Adam and Eve when He created the world, be fruitful and multiply. It's about bringing life to the world. And then when the Torah was given 2,448 years later, God spelled out what he meant to populate the world. And he used two words. And if you know Hebrew, those two words are v'chai bahem, to live in them. This world is about living. This world is about sustaining life, promoting life, bringing life, extending life, doing whatever we can for the living. Judaism was built on the bedrock of kindness. The very first Jew, his name was Abraham. His wife was Sarah. When they discovered God, monotheism, and introduced God to the world, the very first thing they did was they pitched a tent. And in the tent, they had 4 openings from 4 corners and invited all the wayfarers, all the guests to come in. And they would feed them, give them lodging and food and water. And when they would thank them, they'd say, "Don't thank me, thank God in heaven." And that's how they introduced God, through kindness, through love, through sympathies, through empathy, through caring about another person, generosity, unconditional love to strangers. That is Judaism. There aren't too many people that are very frightened of Jewish people blowing up a suicide vest. There aren't too many people who are worried about Judaism taking an airplane and ramming into the 9/11 and killing 4,000 innocent people. And the list goes on, because we are a religion that's obsessed with life and will do anything to spare a life, to bring life, and to prolong life. This is why Israel is so committed to the medical field, to find ways of humanity to live better and healthier and longer, and to help with diseases, that they are at the cutting edge of medical advances compared to anyone in the world. Just recently, I was giving a class and I was talking about what Israel has contributed to the world. And one of the things was a pill camera, a camera that you swallow that goes through your body so doctors can get an inside view of everything that's going on. This innovation was invented in Israel. Almost every country in the globe is using that. Millions of people were saved by this because Israel is about the living. In contrast, when you have a religion that says in the Quran that if you don't believe, then you're an infidel and you should die, then that's not a religion. It's not godly. It's more of a death cult. It's a very evil death cult from the 6th, 7th century that has no place in the 21st century. We have come a long way. The world has come a long way that we don't kill for religion. Religion is not about killing. You don't force someone to believe what you believe. God created us all in our own religion that we need to be. And we all need to stay in our own lane. Just because you're going in a different lane, it doesn't make you better or worse. But that is your lane. That is your religion. That's your God. That's your theological belief system. Stick to it. Judaism doesn't proselytize. We don't ask other people to believe what we believe. We actually feel that we encourage every religion to be devout to their religion. Being devout means being godly, embrace life, prolong life, be obsessed with life. And that is perhaps why the Islamophobia, as we call it, is out there, is because case history, the majority of the terrorist acts that has happened around the world were acts by Muslim adherents, not by Jewish people or Christians. Yes, there's here and there, you'll find some incidents, but by far and all, let's take the last 47 years since Iran has been a state sponsor of terrorism. How many people have died in the name of Islam? From ISIS, Al-Qaeda, etc., etc. We need to be able to move away from the 6th, 7th century and come to the 21st century, put the sword down, Turn the swords, the arms into plowshares. Embrace God, a loving God who wants life and the living. You will find your mission in life, not in death. Well, it may take a long time for that renewal to occur, for that to be able to change the ways. But we need to start one person at a time. And I think Brigitte Gabriel said it right. Once the Muslims begin living life more than death, then there's a chance that we can coexist. But if their obsession is with death and destroying, wiping Israel off the map and terrorizing the world, we will not coexist. We'll have to come together and eliminate them. Let's pray and we hope that God can bring peace to the world so that the Messiah can arrive and bring total peace, that everyone is going to recognize God, and no longer will we be terrorizing each other, hurting each other, being jealous of each other. No more wars, but just peace forever. God bless you. God loves you.